Part 1, Morning at the Coffee Shop, expanded. It was a bright and sunny morning. Tom left his small apartment early, carrying his backpack and a notebook. He was heading to his favorite coffee shop, a cozy place on the corner of Main Street. The sun was shining, the birds were singing, and the streets were slowly filling with people starting their day. When Tom entered the coffee shop, he immediately smelled the fresh coffee and warm pastries. He smiled and looked around. Sitting near the window was his good friend Sarah. She was reading a book and sipping from a tall cup. "Good morning, Sarah," Tom said cheerfully. Sarah looked up and smiled. "Good morning, Tom. I'm happy to see you." Tom walked over and sat across from her. He put his bag on the floor and stretched his arms. "How are you today?" Sarah asked. "I'm good, but a bit sleepy." "I stayed up late last night reading," Tom replied. "Same here," Sarah said. "I couldn't stop watching that new documentary." They both laughed. "Let's get some coffee," Tom suggested. They stood up and walked to the counter. The barista greeted them with a smile. "Hi there. What can I get you?" the barista asked. "One black coffee, please," Tom said. "And a latte with a little sugar for me," Sarah added. They waited by the counter as the barista prepared their drinks. Tom looked around at the other customers. Some were reading newspapers, others were working on laptops, and a few were chatting quietly. "This place is always so calm in the morning," Tom said. "Yes, that's why I love it," Sarah replied. Their drinks were ready, and they returned to their table. "So, what are your plans for today?" Sarah asked. "Well," Tom said, "I thought we could spend the day exploring the city. Maybe go to the bookstore, walk in the park, grab lunch somewhere nice. What do you think?" Sarah's eyes lit up. "That sounds perfect. I'd love that. It's been a while since we spent a full day together." "Exactly," Tom smiled. "Let's enjoy the day." They finished their drinks while talking about what time they woke up, what books they were reading, and how their week had been. It was a relaxed and happy morning. They both felt good about the day ahead. After finishing their coffee, Tom and Sarah packed their things and stood up. "Ready?" Tom asked. "Ready," Sarah said with a big smile. They walked out of the coffee shop and into the sunshine, ready for their small adventure in the city. Part 2, Taking the Subway. After leaving the coffee shop, Tom and Sarah walked down Main Street toward the subway station. The streets were busy now, full of people heading to work, children going to school, and cyclists moving quickly along the bike lane. "It's a beautiful day," Sarah said as she looked up at the sky. "Yes," Tom agreed. "Perfect for walking around the city." Soon, they reached the subway entrance. They went down the stairs and entered the underground station. The cool air inside felt nice after the warm sun. At the ticket machine, Tom pulled out his wallet. "Do you have your Metro card?" he asked. Sarah shook her head. "No, I think I'll buy a single ride." Tom helped her use the machine. "Press this button, then choose one ride," he said. "Now put in your money." Sarah followed the steps. Got it. That was easy. They walked to the platform and waited for the train. There were a few other people standing nearby, a man in a suit, a woman with a baby stroller, and two teenagers listening to music. I like watching people, Sarah said. Everyone is going somewhere. Everyone has a story. Tom nodded. That's true. I wonder where they're going. A moment later, the train arrived. The doors opened with a soft sound, and people stepped off while others stepped on. Tom and Sarah found two empty seats and sat down. The train started moving. It was a smooth ride. The lights above flickered a little as they passed through the tunnels. Sarah looked at the map on the wall. How many stops until the bookstore? 5 stops, Tom said. We get off at Central Station. They looked out the window as the train passed each station. An automated voice announced the names. Next stop, Elm Street. Tom smiled. These announcements are great for learning English. They're slow and clear. Sarah agreed. Yes, and the signs are helpful too. Exit, transfer, northbound. You see these words often. They talked about how they first learned to ride the subway, and how it was confusing at first. But with practice, it became easy. After about 10 minutes, the train arrived at Central Station. The doors opened, and they stood up. Let's go, Sarah said happily. They walked off the train and up the stairs into the city again. The sun was still shining, and now they were close to their next stop. The big bookstore downtown. Are you ready to explore some books? Tom asked. Always. Sarah laughed. Let's go find something interesting. Part 3, Visiting the Bookstore. Tom and Sarah stepped onto the busy sidewalk outside the subway station. The city was alive with noise and movement. Buses roared past, people walked quickly in all directions, and music played softly from a street performer's guitar. Just a few blocks away, they saw the large bookstore with big glass windows and a bright red sign that said, City Books. There it is, Tom said, pointing. Let's go. They walked together and pushed open the bookstore doors. A small bell above the door rang as they entered. Inside, the air smelled like paper and coffee. The store was quiet and peaceful. Wow, Sarah said softly. I love this place. Bookshelves stretched from floor to ceiling. There were cozy chairs in the corners and signs that said things like new arrivals, bestsellers, and children's books. Where should we start? Tom asked. Let's look at the English learning section first, Sarah suggested. They walked past several rows of books until they found a section with titles like English for Beginners, Daily English Practice, and English Idioms and Phrases. Look at this one, Tom said, picking up a book called Everyday English Conversations. This might be useful. Sarah nodded. Yes, and this one too, Speak English Naturally. It has exercises and listening practice. They both chose a few books and sat down in a quiet reading area. There were soft chairs and a small table where people could read or study. As they flipped through pages, They took turns reading simple sentences aloud. My name is John. I live in New York. Tom read. I like to read books and drink coffee. Sarah followed. They laughed at how easy but helpful the practice was. This is fun, Sarah said. And it's good review. Tom smiled. Reading out loud helps pronunciation. I need to practice more. After a while, Sarah stood up. I want to look at the fiction section. Let's find a good story. They walked to another area of the store. There were novels, short stories, and books in both English and other languages. Sarah picked up a book with a colorful cover. This one looks interesting. It's about a woman who travels around the world. Tom found a mystery novel. And this one is about a detective in London. They browsed quietly for a while, flipping through pages and sharing interesting lines. I love bookstores, Sarah said. They make me feel calm. Tom agreed. Me too. I could stay here all day. After about 45 minutes, they decided it was time to move on. I think I'll buy this one, Sarah said, holding up the travel novel. I'll get this too, Tom said, showing the English practice book. They walked to the cashier, paid for their books, and left the store with small paper bags in hand. Back on the sidewalk, Sarah smiled. Now what's next? Tom checked the time. It's almost noon. Let's find a nice place to eat. Great idea, Sarah replied. Something with sandwiches or soup sounds perfect. With their new books and cheerful mood, they headed toward the next part of their city adventure, a cozy lunch spot. Part 4. Having lunch at a small restaurant. Tom and Sarah strolled down the busy street, looking for a good place to have lunch. The sun was now high in the sky, and they were starting to feel hungry. I'm really in the mood for a sandwich, Tom said, looking around. Me too. Let's find a cozy little cafe, Sarah replied. Just around the corner. They saw a small restaurant with tables outside and a chalkboard sign that said, Today's special. Tomato soup and grilled cheese. Perfect, Sarah said. Let's go in. They walked into the cafe, and a kind waiter greeted them. Table for two? He asked. Yes, please, Tom replied. The waiter led them to a small table near the window. The walls were decorated with old photos and drawings of the city. The cafe smelled like fresh bread and warm soup. They looked at the menu. It had simple meals, soups, salads, sandwiches, and hot drinks. I'll have the grilled cheese and tomato soup combo, Sarah said. Same for me, Tom added. And a lemonade, please. I'll have a hot tea, Sarah said with a smile. The waiter wrote their order and walked to the kitchen. While they waited, Tom and Sarah talked about the books they bought. I can't wait to start reading mine, Tom said. Me too. I think I'll read a chapter tonight, Sarah replied. Their food arrived quickly. The grilled cheese sandwiches were golden and crispy, and the soup was served hot in white bowls. "This smells amazing," Tom said. "Let's eat," Sarah replied. They dipped their sandwiches in the soup and took slow, happy bites. The cafe was quiet, and soft music played in the background. "This is exactly what I needed," Sarah said. "Simple and delicious." "Same here," Tom agreed. "I love finding places like this." As they ate, they watched people walk by outside the window. A man in a suit talked on his phone, a group of students laughed together, and an elderly woman carried groceries carefully. "The city is always full of stories," Sarah said. "That's true," Tom replied. "Even in quiet moments. There's so much happening." They finished their lunch and leaned back in their chairs. "Do you want dessert?" Tom asked. Sarah smiled. "Only if you share it with me." They ordered a small slice of chocolate cake to share. It came with 2 forks. "This is the best part of the meal," Tom joked. "Sweet and simple," Sarah laughed. After their meal, they paid the bill and thanked the waiter. "Let's walk a bit before our next stop," Tom said. "Yes, a walk sounds nice," Sarah replied. They stepped outside into the fresh afternoon air, feeling full and happy. Their next destination was the city park, just a few blocks away. "Ready for a walk in the park?" Tom asked. "Always," Sarah smiled. And with that, they headed toward the green trees and quiet paths of the park. Part 5: Walking in the Park. Tom and Sarah crossed the street and entered the city park. The entrance had a large stone arch with green vines climbing its sides. Inside, the park was peaceful, with tall trees, colorful flowers, and wide walking paths. Children played near a fountain, and couples sat on benches enjoying the afternoon sun. "This is just what we need after lunch," Tom said, taking a deep breath. "Yes," Sarah agreed. "It's so quiet here. I love the sound of the birds." They walked along a shaded path that wound through the trees. The leaves rustled gently in the breeze. A squirrel ran across the path in front of them, making them laugh. "Look at him go," Tom said. "He's in a hurry." Sarah giggled. They passed a small lake where ducks swam lazily. Some people were feeding the ducks with breadcrumbs. Others sat nearby reading books or talking softly. "Let's sit for a while," Sarah said. They found an empty bench near the lake and sat down. The sun warmed their faces, and the gentle sounds of the park surrounded them. "Days like this make me happy," Sarah said. "Just being outside, talking, and not rushing." "Me too," Tom said. "It reminds me to slow down and enjoy simple things." After a few minutes of quiet, Tom pulled a small notebook from his backpack. "What's that?" Sarah asked. "Just some ideas I've been writing," Tom said. "Little notes, stories, or thoughts that come to me." "Can I read one?" Sarah asked. Sure, he said, flipping to a page and handing her the notebook. Sarah read a short paragraph aloud. It was a reflection about finding joy in everyday life, even in small moments like morning coffee or a sunny walk. "This is beautiful," she said. "You should write more." Tom smiled, a bit shy. "Thanks. Maybe I will." They sat for a while longer, watching a group of children fly a colorful kite nearby. The kite danced in the sky, and the kids laughed and ran. "Let's walk some more," Sarah said. They continued through the park, stopping to admire flowers, look at sculptures, and read signs about the trees. Time passed slowly in the best way. As the sun began to lower in the sky, the light turned golden. Tom looked at his watch. "It's getting late," he said. "But we still have time for one last stop." "What do you have in mind?" Sarah asked. "Let's go to the Lookout Hill. We can see the whole city from there." "Perfect ending to a perfect day," Sarah said. They left the park, ready for their final adventure. Part 6. Watching the sunset from the hill. Tom and Sarah left the park and walked toward the Lookout Hill, a gentle slope that rose above the city streets. It was a quiet place that not many people visited, which made it even more special. As they walked up the hill, the golden light of the setting sun bathed everything in a warm glow. "Almost there," Tom said, breathing a little heavier. "Worth the climb," Sarah replied with a smile. At the top, they reached a small wooden bench facing the city skyline. Tall buildings stretched toward the sky, their windows glowing orange in the sunlight. Far in the distance, the river sparkled like glass. "Wow," Sarah whispered. "It's beautiful." They sat down and watched as the sun slowly lowered behind the city. A few birds flew across the sky, and a soft breeze moved through the grass. "I love this view," Tom said. "It makes the city feel peaceful." Sarah nodded. "It's like seeing the world pause for a moment." For a while, they didn't speak. They just sat, side by side, enjoying the quiet and the light. It was one of those moments that didn't need many words. Tom broke the silence. "Thank you for today. I really needed it." "Me too," Sarah said. "It's been one of the best days I've had in a long time." The sun dipped lower, painting the sky with pink and purple. Streetlights began to glow below them, and the first stars appeared. "Let's take a photo," Sarah said, pulling out her phone. They smiled as the camera clicked. A moment captured. "We should do this again soon," Tom said. "Definitely," Sarah replied. "Same time next week?" "It's a date," Tom said. As night began to fall, they stood up and stretched. "Ready to head home?" Tom asked. "Yes, but I'll carry this moment with me," Sarah said. They walked down the hill, their shadows long in the fading light, hearts full from a day well spent. Part 7. Reflecting at home. It was dark when Tom arrived at his apartment. The lights of the city glowed softly through his window. He set his bag on the table and took off his shoes, still thinking about the day he had shared with Sarah. He made himself a cup of tea and sat down on the couch. The room was quiet, and the memories of the day filled the silence. He smiled as he thought of the coffee shop, the subway ride, the bookstore, lunch, the peaceful park, and the sunset from the hill. He opened the paper bag from the bookstore and took out the English practice book he had bought. Turning to the first page, he saw the sentence. "Today is a new beginning." Tom read it out loud. Today is a new beginning. He liked how it sounded. He picked up his notebook and began writing. Today was a day full of small moments, but each one felt big in its own way. I laughed. I learned. I slowed down. I remembered what it feels like to just enjoy being present. He paused, then continued writing. Sarah reminded me how good life can be when you take time for yourself and for others. After finishing his tea, he closed the notebook and turned off the light. He lay in bed, feeling calm. Outside, the city still moved, but inside, he felt still. Not far away, Sarah was also home. She had changed into her pajamas and was curled up on the couch with her new book. She smiled as she read the first few pages. Her thoughts kept returning to the day, the laughs, the quiet moments, the chocolate cake. She picked up her phone and sent a message to Tom. "Thanks for today. Let's do it again soon." Tom saw the message and replied, "Anytime. Best day in a long time." Sarah set the phone down and looked out her window. The stars were bright, and the city looked peaceful from her apartment. She whispered to herself, "Everyday English. Everyday joy." Part 8. Planning the next adventure. The next morning, sunlight poured through Tom's window. He stretched, feeling refreshed. The memories of the previous day were still with him, warm and bright. He reached for his phone and saw a message from Sarah. "Still smiling about yesterday. Any ideas for next weekend?" Tom grinned and typed back, "Of course. Let's plan something fun." Later that day, the two friends met at a quiet cafe with their notebooks open. A map of the city lay between them on the table, and they marked places they hadn't explored yet: an art museum, a bike trail by the river, a weekend street market. "Let's go to the market first," Sarah suggested. "I've heard they have fresh juice and handmade crafts. And maybe some live music," Tom added. "It sounds like the perfect spot." They talked for hours, sketching out a plan for the day. Tom wrote down a list. 1. Morning, street market. 2. Afternoon, picnic by the river. 3. Evening, visit the museum or go for a bike ride. "Let's call it part 2 of our city adventure," Sarah said. "Or maybe Everyday English, the sequel," Tom joked. They laughed, and with each idea, their excitement grew. They made a promise: one new experience every week. Big or small, as long as they did it together. As they left the cafe, Tom looked at Sarah. "Thanks for being part of this." "Always," she replied. The city waited, full of stories yet to be lived. Part 9, A Day at the Street Market. Saturday morning came quickly. Tom packed a small backpack with water, his notebook, and a camera. He wore a light jacket and comfortable shoes, ready for a day of exploring. Sarah met him at the metro station, smiling and holding 2 cups of fresh coffee. "Here you go," she said. "Fuel for our big day." They took the short ride to the market district, chatting along the way. When they stepped out of the station, the smell of food, the sound of music, and the energy of the crowd greeted them. Colorful tents lined the street. Some vendors sold handmade jewelry and art, while others offered baked goods, fruit, and fresh juice. A group of musicians played cheerful tunes on guitars and drums. "Let's check out everything," Tom said, eyes wide. Sarah nodded. "And let's try something new." They started with food. Sarah bought a cup of cold mango juice, and Tom picked a warm spinach and cheese pastry. "This is so good," Tom said between bites. They walked slowly through the rows, stopping at stalls that caught their interest. Sarah found a pair of earrings shaped like tiny books. Tom bought a small plant in a clay pot painted with English words. "Grow, learn, shine." As the sun rose higher, the market grew busier. They took photos, smiled at strangers, and listened to stories from friendly sellers. Around noon, they found a grassy patch near a fountain and sat down for a small picnic. They shared a sandwich, some fruit, and watched people go by. "Today feels like a dream," Sarah said. "It's noisy and busy, but I love it." Tom nodded. "It's full of life. And everything is so colorful, like learning English should be." They rested for a while, then packed up and headed toward the river for the next part of their day. Part 10, Picnic by the River. Tom and Sarah followed a quiet path that led from the market to the riverbank. The sound of the city faded, replaced by the gentle flow of water and birds singing in nearby trees. The river shimmered under the afternoon sun, and a few families and couples were already relaxing on the grassy field nearby. "This is the perfect spot," Sarah said, pointing to a shady patch under a large tree. Tom nodded and laid out a checkered blanket. They both kicked off their shoes and sat down. Sarah unpacked their picnic. Sandwiches, sliced fruit, and 2 bottles of lemonade. "It's like a little vacation," Tom said, stretching his legs. Sarah smiled. "Just what we need after all that walking." They ate slowly, enjoying the cool breeze and watching ducks swim in the river. A small group nearby played quiet music on a portable speaker. Children laughed in the distance, flying kites and playing tag. After lunch, Tom took out his notebook and wrote a few lines. "What are you writing?" Sarah asked. "Just a few thoughts about today. About how peaceful this moment feels," he said. Sarah leaned back on her elbows and looked at the sky. "It's easy to forget how nice it is to slow down. We should make this a habit." Tom looked around. "I can see us doing this every week, different parks, different spots," same good energy. They sat in silence for a while, letting the afternoon pass gently. Then Tom stood and stretched. "Want to walk along the river before we go?" he asked. Sarah nodded. "Let's do it." They packed up the picnic and followed the path along the water, talking about books, food, and new places they wanted to visit. The river sparkled beside them, and the late afternoon light made everything glow. It had been a full, beautiful day, exactly what they had hoped for. Part 11, An Evening at the Art Museum. As the sun began to set, Tom and Sarah arrived at the art museum. The tall glass entrance reflected the warm evening light. Inside, the cool air and quiet atmosphere welcomed them. They walked slowly through the exhibits, stopping often to admire paintings, photographs, and sculptures. Each piece told a story, and they took turns sharing what they saw and how it made them feel. "This one makes me feel calm," Sarah said, looking at a painting of a quiet lake at dawn. Tom nodded. "It reminds me of the river this afternoon." They found a bench in the modern art section and sat down. Around them were bright colors and bold shapes. "This kind of art always makes me think," Tom said. "Like learning a new word, it doesn't always make sense right away, but it stays with you." Sarah smiled. "That's a great way to put it." As they explored more, they paused at an interactive exhibit. It was a wall filled with small notes where visitors wrote their thoughts. Sarah picked up a pencil and wrote, "Today reminded me to slow down and notice the little things." Tom wrote, "Adventure is everywhere, even in your own city." They left the museum just as the sky turned dark. Streetlights glowed, and the air was cooler. They walked to the subway, feeling calm and full of thought. That was the perfect way to end the day, Tom said. "I agree," Sarah replied. "Let's keep doing this, living each day with curiosity and joy." They smiled at each other, already thinking about the next adventure. Thanks for watching. Take action today, not tomorrow. Press subscribe. And let's keep learning together. You're doing great. See you in the next one. Stay strong.